Alex Maslaton with a mountain and an extension of the hand. Mr. Magic slams his way into the semi-finals.
8 points of damage, questing beast on the battlefield, wicked wolf in the holster, that's a mountain. Andrea Mengucci, congratulations, you progress.
Unlock my lands, then go to work with the punishing fires. Andrew has
It's
none of
predict,
it.
and that's going to do it. Lucien Longley extends the hand, and Andrew Cuneo is your champion.
Rich Hagon here, welcoming you to Profiles, where this week we hang out with Reid Duke, Andrew Cuneo, and Andrea Mengucci. We talk vintage, we talk legacy, we talk great moments, and much more. So let's go. Reid Duke may be just about the most famous Magic player alive. He's got more Twitter followers than the NHL player of the same name. A titan at the table, a popular content creator, a true ambassador for the game, a member of the Hall of Fame, and the biggest Jund enthusiast around. Reid, thanks for being on Profiles. So what is Legacy?
Legacy is my favorite constructed format, and the best way I can put it is Legacy is the final resting place of all of your old favorite cards. I want to tell you about two different legacies. Legacy Now, which is, really fun, engaging format with awesome gameplay, and Legacy in the old days when I fell in love with it. Legacy in the old days was just pure magic. You could brew, you could play whatever cards you wanted. There wasn't a lot of information about what the best decks were. Folks didn't have all the cards. So playing Legacy back in, 2008, 2007, it was like you'd flip through your binder, you'd go, all right, well, I've got 2 scrub lands and 4 Dark Confidants, so I guess I'm going to build a white-black deck.
Legacy is, in shorthand, every card ever printed you can play, and then in brackets, with a few cards that are just so broken and nuts that we have to keep the format healthy not to. But this is 20 plus years of cards.
Yeah, 20 plus years of cards. And actually, I think that, Vintage is a great format too. I love Vintage. But the fact that the very, very best cards are banned in Legacy actually broadens the number of cards that you can play with, because, certain strategies would be invalid if things were too powerful.
Because we're dealing with such a big card pool, what types of cards do well in Legacy? What's the DNA of a successful Legacy card?
Well, Legacy is very much about efficiency. And this is true in Modern, but it's even more true in Legacy because of cards like Wasteland, Daze, Force of Will. These are all cards that make it difficult for you to be successful if your game plan is built around resolving 5 and 6 and 7 mana cards. Really tough in Legacy. So instead, you want to focus on cards that cost 1 mana, cards that cost 2 mana. Basically, if you need to do a job, do it in the way that's most efficient in terms of mana and resources.
Does Legacy right now, does it have a defined metagame? What is it like?
Legacy definitely fits that bill where you can go where your strengths are, where your interests are. Standard is great, but every deck kind of converges into this sort of normal game of Magic where you have creatures and removal spells, and that's great. That's really fun. But Legacy, you get all these totally distinct categories of decks: combo decks, graveyard decks, control decks, hyper aggressive decks, and of course mid-range decks as well. So I think there's no rules when it comes to Legacy in terms of you have to do it this way. You can really express yourself in terms of being creative deck builder and choose the strategy that fits you as a player.
Control decks are about what I have in hand and am I able to react to what you're doing. And aggressive decks might be about their life total. And graveyard decks, by definition, they're about the graveyard. But one thing that I find fascinating about Legacy is it seems to me the one format where lands are massively important, and so often games of Legacy are these chess matches, for want of a better term, with only 1 or maybe 2 lands in play for either player at any one time. Why are lands just so important in Legacy?
Well, lands, a lot of the battles in Legacy are fought over those cards, Wasteland and Daze. So when I play a control or mid-range deck against Delver being one of the most popular, effective, disruptive strategies in Legacy, my main battle is, can I get my mana underneath me? Can I get to the point where I have 3-4 lands safely in play where I can cast my spells? Because the Delver deck's not going to let you do that in a lot of games. They're going to wasteland you. They're going to kill you quickly. They're going to stifle. They're going to, counter your brainstorm, anything like that. So, and that's only one example. That's not even to mention decks that actually utilize lands like Dark Depths combo or, Rishadan Port, Ancient Tomb, Cloud Post. All this stuff is huge in Legacy. And, in Standard, you can sort of watch for how is the battlefield developing, who has more stuff on the battlefield. In Legacy, it's like any individual piece or resource can be the one that the game hinges on.
So are there skills that a Legacy player needs that are right on the line in Legacy that you might not be using as much in your Friday night draft or your Standard?
You need attention to detail, and you need the ability to parse the specifics of a situation in order to understand what's important. Again, going back to Standard, with your Standard deck, you kind of memorize the openings. Like, what kind of opening hand do I keep or mulligan? What do I want to accomplish in my first 3 or 4 turns? And then you hope that opening puts you in a favorable position going into the mid game. But in Legacy, you don't really have that opening period. The action starts right from your very first land drop, and you need to understand what's going on, what's special about this situation, and how do I do everything, precisely according to what I have and what my opponent has.
Well, I knew before we started that you were passionate about Legacy, but you're certainly selling me on the format. And of all the Grand Prix that you've played in, and there have been many and there have been many highs, I imagine one of the strangest weekends you've spent playing Magic was what we called Reid in Richmond in 2018, which was a Legacy Grand Prix. Tell us about that.
Well, that was an awesome project, and I have you in part to thank for that, Rich, as you were a big driving force in putting it together. But what happened was I had been scheduled to be on the coverage team for Richmond, but the way the season broke out, it ended up being one of the last events in the season where I was in a very close race for the Player of the Year title. So I think I called you up on the phone, Rich, and I said, if it's possible, I would love to, get a replacement for the coverage team and compete in the Grand Prix instead. And you said, well, we could do that, or I have a different idea.
Yeah, why don't we do both?
Yes, exactly. So we did both. I was able to compete in the Grand Prix in a way where I was one of the feature matches in every single round. And then when I finished my match, I would go into the booth and I would do coverage either of, my own match that I had just played, sort of a debrief, or cover, another feature match. And that was exhausting, to say the least, but it was really, really fun to just get that deep dive and sink my teeth into, the attention to detail aspect of Legacy. As a content creator and a coverage person, I have a lot of opportunities to develop, to deliver people the big picture of Magic. What's the deck list? What's the overall game plan? But when you actually get to approach those, okay, here's why I made this land drop this way in this order, the very, very fine-grained, zooming in the microscope, so to speak, that's really rewarding, and that was a special experience.
Quite apart from the entertainment angle, because of course so many viewers had a wonderful time, the one thing that I took away from that is just how many people were astonished to get that ringside seat at your communication, which was incredibly clear. Just how important is that interaction with opponents to make sure everything is squared away correctly? How big a deal is that?
Oh, it's huge. And another very cool thing about that Grand Prix Richmond is, we do coverage, and it's easy to be at home. You can go on YouTube, you can go on Twitch, you can watch a player play a match. But at Grand Prix Richmond, you actually got to feel as though you were there. Everything from the pre-match small talk to the communication, as you mentioned. And I've played a lot of Magic tournaments against a lot of opponents, many of whom did not speak the same language as me, or might have hearing problems, seeing problems, any variety of special, requirements for playing a game of Magic. And what I've learned from all of that is just be clear in your communication. You can never go wrong communicating clearly with your opponent, and it makes it possible to play a fair, fun game of Magic against anyone, anywhere in the world.
One thing that you, again, have frequently said is you like to feel that you've earned whatever the next thing is. So whether that's a Pro Tour top 8 or after losing in quarterfinals a couple of times, coming back and winning a match on Sunday, that really meant something to you. And it's that strange line between quarters and semis where perhaps people aren't even going to notice that that's your first win on Sunday. But to you, that really meant something. So as we wrap things up, what do you think the next thing is that you will give yourself permission to have earned?
Well, at this stage in my career, what really, really matters to me is getting to compete against the best players in the world. So an event like the World Championship or like the Players Tour Finals, those are the ones that really, get me passionate as compared to just, like a larger field tournament that's open to anyone. Those are still great events, and you could still get really tough matches and high level of competition. But the more exclusive tournaments, I'd say, are the ones that I look forward to more, and that I really work towards making sure like I'm going to be there and I'm going to be my best self.
Reid, what's your favorite word or phrase in Magic?
Target player discards.
Oh, you horrible human. Like thousands of people around the world are going, I liked him. What's your favorite color?
It's really tough for me to choose. I'm torn between green and black. I think if I had to pick the flavor, the concept of green, I want that to be my favorite. But along the lines of what I just said, I think I enjoy playing with black the most.
Okay. So it's like instant gratification for you, isn't it? It's just like land, Thoughtseize, life's great.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Dearie me. So is Thoughtseize your favorite card?
It's got to be up there, but I tend to say my favorite card is Huntmaster of the Fells. Actually,
okay.
This is the one that I have hanging over my shoulder here.
Uh-huh. All right. What's the best deck you ever played?
I'll give you two. The best two decks I ever played. The first was my very first Grand Prix Top 8. I built a Natural Order Rug or Teamer deck. And, other people had Natural Order for Progenitus at the time, but adding the red gave me access to Lightning Bolt, Red Elemental Blast, Ancient Grudge. The other best deck I think ever that I ever got the experience to play was just plain old Blue-White Miracles before it became popular, back when you still had Sensei's Divining Top and Counterbalance. That deck was amazing. You felt very advantaged against almost everyone.
Now, do you think either of those were the actual best deck of all time, or do you have another candidate for that?
Oh, geez. When you ask about the best deck of all time, I love the old legends of, decks that maybe were super powerful but didn't get their time in the sun. Like one is the Necropotence Illusions Donate deck with Force of Will. So you go Dark Ritual, Necropotence, draw a million cards. Now I have Force of Will for whatever you play on your turn, and then I'm going to play Illusions of Grandeur, gain 20 life with the Necropotence. That one, of course, was great. There's also a legend of, I think it was Brian Hacker, finished just outside the top 8 in Pro Tour Rome, which was the Tolarian Academy Pro Tour. And the legend has it that he had some secret amazing deck featuring Gusta's Scepter and Lion's Eye Diamond. And it's like, it's sort of lost to time, right?
Look it up, children. Look it up.
The legend remains.
That's awesome. What turns you on? What excites you in life, Reid?
I mean, I just like to feel passionate about things. Anything that really challenges me, that engages me, that I feel, is a rewarding experience. That's when I'm really, activated, I guess. Other
than gaming, what profession would you like to try?
Well, I like the way you phrase that. What would I like to try? I guess it would be cool to be a scientist. Like, if I could just teleport into someone else's world for a day, be like an astronomer or something, because that's really cool. because it takes usually a lifetime worth of background to be able to do that job. But if I could just be that for, a week or a month, that'd be awesome.
Okay. If at some point you're no longer playing Magic competitively, what do you hope people will say about you as a player and as a person?
That I really loved the game.
Reid Duke, we know you do love the game, and the game loves you right back. Thanks for being here on Profiles.
Thanks for having me.
The winner of the first ever MTG Arena tournament, Andrea Mengucci, is living at the top of the Magic world right now. He had a dominant 2019, adding 2 more top finishes to that mythic invitational title. He's a popular streamer, a true MTG fanatic, and his Mengu cuisine tweets and legacy videos are famous across the community. Andrea, welcome to the show. What is Vintage?
So Vintage is how I started to play Magic. How basically every one of us, probably all the more old schoolers, started to play Magic. Just I got a bunch of cards from my brother. My brother never really played Magic. I just have a bunch of cards laying around. I just put them together, and just went to the beach and played cards with my friends. And that's how I started playing the game. That was Vintage.
Right. So I don't think of you as that old. When did you start playing?
I started playing in 2004. So I was 11 years old, just, a kid at the beach. And it was kind of like this game that we're playing like between, a game of beach soccer or, beach tennis, a bath. And, just play cards with my friends. I wasn't really I playing Magic during the month where we weren't going on the beach. So it was, mainly just only a summer game.
So what is the appeal of Vintage? What is so great about Vintage as a format?
It's you can cast Ancestral Recall and Black Lotus. Just drawing 3 cards, paying 1 mana over and over. Now you even have Mystic Sanctuary. You can put it on top of your deck. You have just like drawing 3 cards, making mana. It's just something so unfair that it's just no other formats gives you that. Like you have turn 1 wins. On turn 1, both players could put like 10 spells each and stuff like that, and that's just something fun.
Do you, as a great player, do you have time in a game of Vintage to be good, or is it over so fast that basically you're just kind of playing out your thing and seeing what happens?
There's a lot of high variance. Like it's a high variance game. So like sometimes you're just there and there's nothing you can do about it. But some games are very draw go. Let's say like the blue mirror. I usually play blue decks. So the blue decks mirror match, they're very, very skill intensive. Very often you have to just like act in your opponent's end step, or you can't draw too many cards, or you're going to discard, or you don't want to deploy cards because you want to put your opponent in discard phase. It's every game is, there's just, the games are never repetitive. That's why I enjoy so much. There's just some games, sure, you do like Tinker turn 1 and you win the game and there's nothing your opponent can do, but some other games are challenging. And again, I like it because it's just different than normal Magic.
So Reid Duke, who was on the show earlier, talked about Legacy and said that the cards there, you're trying to be really efficient, lots of 1 mana spells, 2 mana spells. Lands are incredibly important because you have to just look after them so carefully. Is Vintage a game where unfair is everything that you're trying to do?
Definitely. Yeah, like unfair is just like, kind of breaking the rules of, limited or standard, where you just top, 3 lands and play a 3-drop and stuff like that. Vintage, it's just, it is definitely unfair. I also love Legacy. Legacy is also a format that I am, deeply in love with, both Legacy and Vintage. Recently, though, I've been hanging around with this friend of mine a lot, and he's just so much into Vintage that just, sometimes in the game of Magic, you just play whatever. Very often, you just play whatever your friends are playing, just to keep in company, and and that's how I tell everybody. Like, lots of people ask me, like, how do you enjoy Magic and stuff like that? It's just the most important thing is having friends where you can share your passion with. And right now, I had this very good friend, and been enjoying a lot.
How big a deal was it for you to spend 2015, 16, 17, 18 at the World Magic Cup representing Italy and being a champion?
It's going to be forever and by far the best memories that I'll be getting in the game. Sure, the Mythic Invitational is a great memory, but like all the time that I got to because very often you're like with friends, right? You're with friends. If you have a good win, your friends cherish for you, but that's different than a team event. In a team event, like your friends really are happy because you all won together, you know? So that's just different. Like the team events are amazing. And World Magic Cup is also something that, like, I would say that maybe Italian people are way more, let's say, like, they express their emotions more. So if we have a win together, we're just gonna celebrate like a lot. Let's say when we won the World Magic Cup in 2015, you know, cheer felt, like we sang song for like, you know, 6 or 7 hours, you know, after the win and everything like that. But even the other events, when we made the top 4, it was still like a lot of happiness and just a lot of people thanking me from our country, you know, to be representing the country. Because let's say, you know, the last time with Chianfamune and Mattia Basilico, they were less known and we still made it through. And like a lot of people just reached out and were like, you know, it's great to see, you know, Italy always doing well and stuff like that. And that doesn't happen if like I top it a PT. You know, people like say congrats and that's it. You know, it's rare that you see like, whereas like the patriotism of these events were just amazing.
For sure. Now, you've already mentioned the Mythic Invitational. Clearly, you had a fantastic time because you won. But what was the overall experience of that tournament like?
It was the first time we had an arena tournament. So we had like, our bar, like we didn't have an expectation because, you know, the Mythic Championship 3, the one in Las Vegas, you know, the first arena one, we knew what was going to happen, but the Invitational, we know nothing. I've never been to PAX or anything like that, so I didn't expect, you know, all this like just so many people, and like we were playing on the stage with people watching us, and you know there was like the sparks at that time, like commentators cherish our name. It was something like unreal. Like I didn't really know what was happening. Plus playing on different client with like the monsters and stuff like that. That was also cool.
Were you prepared for the level of interest and press and just personality that you were needed to give after that tournament? Because it was like nothing Magic had ever had before.
I would say that I always kept my feet on the ground. Like I never felt like something changed, you know, like I kept on working for China Fireball. I kept on streaming on the same time schedule. I kept on like working hard because I had the MPL Worlds, you know, because the Mythic Invitational wasn't giving any point for the Worlds career, whatever path. And I still had to do very well. So I would say that I managed to just, you know, not get into too much and just continued my Magic player, professional player, streamer, influencer life.
So it felt,
I would say it felt normal because of course it wasn't. Right. But I let's say I treated it as like, obviously it's not true because I was happy to have won, but I treated it like I finished last place in the sense of like, I was like, I still like, it's not over yet. It's not over yet. You know, until the last event, I still need to finish the MPL season well.
I understand. You've mentioned streaming. I like the way you're leading us on to the next topic. It's something you do a lot. You're incredibly popular doing it. It is really obvious that one of your great strengths is that you truly adore Magic. You adore Magic at 9 o'clock in the morning and at lunchtime and in the afternoon and in the evening, and you go to bed looking forward to playing Magic the next morning. That is not always the experience. You did a law degree, and you kind of had a crossroads where you could have gone down that path professionally. So what made you choose Magic in the end?
So but my father is a lawyer. So when I finished high school, I was like, I have to decide which university to go, because in Italy, let's say, everybody goes to university. You know, everybody who is like good at school goes to university. And especially if I didn't, you know, I just had to go to university. So I had to choose a path. I was good at math, but I was like, I don't really want to do math too much. And, you know, my father is a lawyer, so maybe if I just end my degree in law, I can just join him when I finish. But what happened is that during my path of my law degree, around third or fourth year, I was platinum. It was 2016, and I was platinum. I made to the World Championship of Magic. So I started like, you know, maybe I can make more money out of this, right? I can make it as a career or something. Magic, you know, wasn't really that much money back then, but was still working for China Fireball and everything. So I started just like being just like keep on making my degree, keep on studying for the exams, but also trying to, be like a good content producer and professional player. And I managed to do it. Like it was hard. It was just hard because I had to do like both things together. Obviously I wasn't streaming back then, so it was like less time consuming back then, but I was still managed to, finish my law degree just in case, anything bad happens. I still have that law degree,
And
it's
I
up there.
remember, okay, and I remember, oh, very good. And I remember very clearly seeing a post by you on Facebook when you got your law degree, and you were clearly so proud that you had managed to achieve both, that you hadn't lost out on the law path, that you managed to do both. Yeah,
that's definitely something that I'll be. This basically is like kind of a life lesson in the sense that I succeeded in. I had a goal. The goal was to just be a competitive Magic player and professional Magic player, and I achieved that. After that, the second place in PT Shadows of Arena tried to lock me for Platinum and Worlds. I knew that could have happened, like something could have happened in that path. But at the same time, I was in probably my fourth year of university. You usually take 5 years university. I took one more. I took one more year. Of course, there was some exam was harder than other, especially in the last year. But I managed to finish it. I was just very, very happy with my results. I didn't get like an amazing, stunning grade at the end, but it's still there. And if I want to use it, if I want to use my law degree, I did it.
Okay, let's talk about Mengu cuisine. What is that?
Mengucci cuisine. Hashtag Mengucci cuisine. It all started as a joke because when I first just going on the PT, from my PT Atlanta top 8, I started testing always with Americans, from Mike Sigrid's team, and then I met Calcano, Ben Friedman, just like a lot of new people, and they were all Americans. So every time we were going to eat, I was feeling the deep difference in both taste and just like, just like not understanding very well what's good or bad, at least in my opinion. So I started sharing. When I went back home, I started sharing what I was eating because I'm like, I have lots of friends that are in America. They're like, they think that, I don't know, fettuccine Alfredo is Italian peak experience, but that wasn't. It isn't even Italian. So I was like, kind of sharing everything I was eating, everything my father was cooking, because my father is a very good cooker. But I also go, on restaurants out quite often, and then just kind of became. I don't know if I'll say a brand, but like something definitely that right now, every time I eat or just take a look at something gorgeous, food related, I take a picture. And all my followers that aren't from Italy get to share some of the Italian food.
I wanted to ask you seriously about the way that you've gone about learning English, because we take for granted on coverage that everyone will just speak English to us and will tell us all their deep feelings in a language that isn't their own. And when we first met back at sort of World Magic Cup 2015, you didn't have a huge amount of English. You spoke a little, but not very much. And you clearly chose to become as perfectly fluent as you are. So how did you do that?
I don't know if you've ever rewatched the interview that Marshall Sutcliffe gave me when I was the King of the Hill in PT Atlanta 2014. My English was very bad. I was like, okay. And what happens is that in Italy, everybody studies English, but the problem is the speaking. The speaking is just by far the problem, because we just not... Maybe now you watch Netflix series with subtitles, you get to learn something, you get to understand better, but the speaking is the highest problem. Whereas I had the luck of traveling a lot and always hanging around with American friends. Also making the legacy video helped me a lot, because in those legacy video for Channel Fireball, I was speaking English. I was speaking English a lot. Even if you speak Magic English, which is, just like on top upkeep, naming cards and stuff like that, you do speak your mind, and that just helps you in thinking in a different language, which is how you level up. You level up by thinking in a different language. So like instead of just translating your thoughts, you just immediately speak your thoughts. And this is how I think it's just and you can only do this if you, let's say you just move and live in another country. You do that. I never moved. I always lived in this house my whole life, but getting to travel so much just helped me. Just testing, just learning the language and like speaking the English language, which is the most important language in the world.
Andrea, what's your favorite word or phrase in Magic?
Good game.
Your favorite color?
Green.
Favorite card?
Teferi, Hero of Dominaria.
Why?
He's a good member of Mythic Invitational, plus I just enjoy Esperone a lot.
Sure. What's the best deck you ever played?
Esper, Lurus, Paradoxical, and Vintage.
What even is that? Explain.
Black Lotus, Lurus, Black Lotus.
Okay. Yeah, that's disgusting. Fair enough. All right. Within its own format and time, what do you think the best deck ever is? Is it that?
It's that, for sure. I don't think you'll ever have a deck that powerful in the history of Magic.
Okay, what turns you on? What excites you in life?
I would say just like playing the game Magic the Gathering with a very good group friend of mine. Let's say a 3 versus 3 vintage cube. That's probably just something that I just dream of.
Okay. What don't you like in life?
Being unable to see my friends, to see my girlfriend, which it just happened in this past month. Thankfully, Google Hangout was here to help us, but I was definitely felt like something was missing.
If at some point you are not playing Magic competitively any longer, what do you hope people will say about you as a player and as a person?
I just hope that people will remind me for being like entertaining, fun, enjoying the game. Maybe I gave them one time a perfect deck in Cyber Guide, which they qualified for the PT for. That's definitely something that content producer just love to hear. If I somehow helped you in both entertainment or Magic succeeded, that just makes me happy.
Well, you certainly had plenty of success and you've given us plenty of entertainment. Here's to many more videos. Andrea Mengucci, thanks for being on Profiles. Andrew Cuneo has been around Magic since the very beginning, and his success spans Magic's history too. He made his first top finish in New York in 2001, and just last year added his 4th career top finish at Mythic Championship 6 in Richmond. Cuneo is one of the most consistent players in the game, and earned his slot back in the MPL in 2020 as a result. Andrew, welcome to Profiles, thanks for being here. How did you start your journey into Magic?
I started my freshman year in college, which was 1997.
Okay.
Just playing with people at kind of the college student center. One
thing that I hope you are very proud of is that you are known within the history of the game as a deck builder, and in particular, a deck that will be forever in the annals of Magic, something called Draw Go, which some people watching this will not have been alive when that was created. So can you tell us, what was Draw Go?
Well, it was a mono blue, basically a counterspell deck, which it used at that point, actual counterspell was legal in standard.
Yep.
It used that, and it used like the other really good counters of the time. And sort of when I made that deck, there people had played decks that were counterspell based. Like there's another famous deck called The Deck that Brian Weissman made in Vintage, and that was it's a vintage deck, so it played more than one color. Like he used counterspell and Swords to Plowshares, and depending on what was legal at the time, like there was a 3rd or a 4th color in the deck usually.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that was different with Draw Go was I don't think people had really made, just like, at least in the competitive sense, a mono blue counterspell deck.
Right.
Because blue was perceived as, like you couldn't deal with creatures once they got in play, and that was a problem. So most people would add a second color to their deck to address that. I just used Nevin Jarl's Disc, and there was a land called Quicksand at the time. So it was kind of like maybe the innovation in that deck is figuring out that there were ways within one color to just build a pure control deck.
You had a lot of success in the early 2000s, and then suddenly it seemed 3 Grand Prix wins in the space of 12, 18 months. Richmond, Mexico City, Indianapolis. And we talked with Reid earlier in this show about the Richmond Grand Prix, that he was busy watching we were all watching his every turn. That was the tournament that you were quietly winning. Is Legacy a thing that you love, or did you just pick up the deck and went, I can play this pretty competently?
I like playing Legacy, and I sort of, I for a while I would play it maybe once a year competitively, and I thought that was a really good amount to play it because I think the gameplay in Legacy is great. Like I think that's actually the best gameplay if you're playing competitive Magic, is just playing Legacy. The problem is that it's up until recently, at least, like just the new cards didn't really ever have an effect on it. So it got repetitive if that was all you did. At least it got repetitive to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely something I feel comfortable doing. And it's a little bit weird for me when I play Legacy, because I know that for a lot of people, Legacy is this weird old format where you get to play with these cards you've heard of, but maybe you've never gotten to try, like Force of Will or Brainstorm. I can remember playing Force of Will when it was legal in Standard. I can remember playing Brainstorm in Standard. So for me, it's less of... I have a different perspective on the format, I guess I would say, just because it's more like going back and redoing things I've done in the past, not getting to try something that, it's something from history that you've only ever heard about.
I want to turn my attention to what's behind you, because over your left shoulder, we have assorted trophies that we've just talked about. Over your right shoulder, we have a selection of guitars. How did you get into music, playing the guitar, and what part does music play in your life?
I started when I was in, I guess, junior high school. I just got a guitar, started taking lessons. And then I played with bands when I was in high school. I played with, one of the reasons I stopped playing competitive Magic in the early 2000s was I was playing in bands, and it was like you just couldn't do the travel and also be in bands, because bands usually play gigs on the weekend.
Yep.
And that's when Magic tournaments are. So just I stopped playing Magic to focus more on music.
Mm-hmm.
Now I haven't played in a band or in a gig in like maybe 8 or 9 years at this point. I play for fun at home now.
And what
I do play a lot though. So
okay.
I play pretty much every day.
And what sort of things do you play? What styles do you belong to, if you like?
Well, for a long time I played in rock bands that ranged from like punk bands to more. Do you know what the term math rock means? It's pretty obscure.
I'm afraid I don't.
It's kind of like a cross between prog rock and punk rock.
Okay.
On like it's sort of a lot. It's people that came from a punk rock background that started playing more prog rock music. So I guess this happened in the early 2000s. I was in a band, like we recorded multiple CDs. Some of them I think are pretty good. And then I haven't played that kind of style of music in a long time. I got into playing more like, I guess you would describe it as more like folk rock music about 10 years ago. But now I really, since I only ever play by myself, I play more, a little bit more jazz, like stuff that's kind of arranged just to be played by one guitar. Like I don't spend a ton of time just sitting around playing the guitar part that would, if I was in a band, I would be playing. Like that's not.
One good turn deserves another. Whenever you and I meet at a tournament, you always ask me, when is coverage going to do my special feature on the card Necropolis? And generally I ask, on what now? So here's your chance, Andrew. We've got a captive audience. Tell us about Necropolis.
I'm going to start out by asking you a question, Rich. Are you aware of the invitational deck I submitted named When Walls Free?
No.
You need to look into that.
Okay.
It's pretty important. So I guess like by way of backstory, which I don't know if you want to use this or not, but so by way of backstory, the invitationals in the, I'm going to say early 2000s, they would sometimes have contests where fans could send in decks based on certain themes. And there was like a bidding process to select the decks. One year the theme was tribal decks. And I submitted decks from a bunch of different tribes. Like I did oxes at a point in time when there was only 1 or 2 oxes in Magic. I did demons. I also did walls. Walls was a very popular category, but I won because I submitted the most unusual wall deck.
Okay.
Which you need to, you can go and find an article Mark Rosewater wrote about this deck. If you search for like When Walls Fight on Google, like Magic, When Walls Fight, something like that,
Yep.
you'll get a deck list and an explanation from Mark as to why that deck was chosen. And Necropolis is featured prominently in the deck.
Okay.
So I have a copy of it.
Oh,
I bought.
Good. Okay.
I bought this copy so that when I was streaming, I would sometimes play guess what card I'm holding, and Necropolis had to be one of the cards for people to guess.
Okay,
it's one of the easier ones.
Okay, now some people don't know what this card is or does. So why don't we start with the fact that it's an artifact creature for 5, and we'll let
5
people.
mana.
Yeah, so people will be thinking, I wonder what I get for my 5 mana.
Well, you get a 5 mana 0/1, so right away good. Like, hard to do better than that. Counts as a wall. It's got a picture of like an owl on it, and then you do get a very powerful ability. You take a creature card from your graveyard, remove it, and you put X plus 0/+1 counters on it equal to the creature's casting cost. So you can make a wall with almost unlimited toughness with a little bit of effort.
Okay. Why are we talking about it, Andrew?
What do you mean? Do you want your card to do more?
I would love it if it. I mean, was that the goal? Was it just that the 0/7s and the 0/8s just weren't getting it done for you, and you just wanted to make a 0 lots?
Yeah. It's. I mean, I think that's pretty nice. You're really not going to like some of the cards in the When Walls Fight deck if this didn't do it for you, because this is like.
Is this the power card? Is this the
this
payoff?
Is above the curve.
Oh.
That auction, there was a bidding process, and they had 16 competitors and 17 decks, and you would bid like starting hand size and life, and nobody would bid on my deck at all. They wanted it under no circumstances. You know, people were like, I want to have, the Goblin deck. I'll start with 4 cards in my opening hand and 7 life or something like that. Or they could have the wall deck for 7 cards and 20 life, and they didn't want the wall deck. It's a great deck. Really, Mark did a wonderful job explaining it.
Do you value that you see the world differently to a lot of people? Because we're entering a world in Magic where there's a lot of branding of players being on teams, players in esports, players trying to explain why they're great at Magic, and fans. And it seems to me that you don't care about an awful lot of that at all. And you like to hang out with friends, play Magic, play your guitar, and carry on being you. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, so a big part of it, I think, that's different for me from a lot of other people. I would guess you know this, Richard. You might have an inkling. I'm the oldest person in the MPL by a good amount. Like, I'm not sure the second oldest is, but I think I'm at least 5 years older than everyone else. And a big part of that is just like, I'm comfortable with where I am in life. And like I sort of, financially, I'm in fine shape. Like some of the other guys in the MPL, they need to make this into a career because they're trying to support a family, and that's just not where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fine with that. So
okay,
I'm happy to just enjoy playing in the tournaments, honestly.
all right. Well, we give everyone the same questionnaire, so here's yours. Andrew Cuneo, what's your favorite word or phrase in Magic?
I'll say booster draft.
Nice. Your favorite color in the game?
I guess I'll say blue.
Mm-hmm. Your favorite card?
There was a Twitter poll about this that Mike Turian did, so I'm going to stick with that answer for consistency. Mana Vortex.
Okay. What's the best deck you ever played?
Are these supposed to be like short hit things?
Just tell me the truth. You take as long as you want.
All right. So to me, the best deck I ever played was a deck that almost nobody else played and nobody really knew about. There was a year in like maybe 1999, probably 1999, where I went to US regionals, which at the time was a big deal tournament that you needed to top 8 to get to US nationals, which was a very big deal tournament. I went to regionals. I played a blue-green deck that was based on like Birds of Paradise, Trade Wind Rider, Winter Orb, Propaganda type cards. I went 7-2 in the Swiss, so I lost in the last round to not make the top 8.
Okay.
The two people I lost to both made the top 8 of U.S. nationals. It was Matt Lindy, who went on to be a Pro Tour champion, and Pete Lehrer, who had the DCI number 1, I believe.
Wow.
And like Matt played a Merfolk deck, which was really bad matchup for my deck, and Pete was playing mono red, and he beat me 2 games out of 3 or something like. He beat me in a close match basically. Mm-hmm. But everyone else I played, it was so easy to win with that deck. I think that's honestly the best deck I've ever played.
And
go ahead.
And what do you think would be the best deck of all time?
I'm going to say the same thing I hope everyone else has said, which is the Illusions Donate deck.
There are a lot of people who have mentioned that monstrosity, yes. Okay. What excites you in life, Andrew?
Nothing. Is that a good answer?
Maybe it's a revealing answer if it's true.
I don't.
Perhaps excite is too strong. What brings you contentment?
I think that like the week a new set comes out when you get to draft it for the first time is one of the things I definitely get excited about.
If you're no longer playing Magic competitively, what do you hope that people will say about you as a player and as a person?
I guess I hope that they remember me as a good player who also was an honest player. I played fair.
Andrew Cuneo, the oldest member of the MPL, and certainly one of the best to hang out with. Thanks for hanging out with us on Profiles.
Thanks for having me.
And that wraps up Season 1 of Profiles. A special thanks to my exec producer Barry Hennessy and editor Jason Vo back at WotC HQ. Thanks to all my guests Reid Duke, Andrew Cuneo and Andrea Mengucci, and to you for watching. If you want to watch more episodes of this and other great Magic the Gathering esports content, please subscribe, and we'll see you soon.